Introduction. The person you're about to become. 3 weeks from right now, you could look in the mirror and not fully recognize who's looking back. Not because of a haircut, not because of a new wardrobe, but because the person in the reflection will carry themselves differently, will think differently, will respond to stress, rejection, failure, and opportunity in ways that today's version of you hasn't yet learned. I know how that sounds. You've heard the promises before. You've watched the motivational reels at midnight, felt your chest tighten with possibility, made the lists, set the alarms, and by Thursday you were back to the same routines, the same excuses, the same quiet disappointment in yourself. This is different, and not because I'm going to tell you to believe harder, hustle more, or wake up at 4 a.m. like some tech billionaire. This is different because we're going to start at the root. The root is this: you are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated or weak-willed. You are running old programming. And old programming, no matter how outdated, no matter how destructive, runs flawlessly. It does exactly what it was designed to do. The problem isn't you. The problem is the code. Neuroscientists have known for decades what the self-help industry has been slow to admit. The human brain is not fixed. It is plastic, meaning it physically changes its structure based on what you think, do, and repeatedly experience. Every habit you have, every story you believe about yourself, every emotional reflex you carry, all of it is wiring, and wiring can be changed. 21 days is not a magic number. It won't complete your transformation. But it is long enough to begin one that actually sticks, because you will have given your brain enough repeated, intentional experience to start carving new grooves. Neuroscientists call this process synaptic pruning and neuroplasticity. I call it becoming someone new on purpose. This is a 21-day ignition, not a 21-day finish line. Think of it like launching a rocket. The most fuel burned in any space mission is in the first 73 seconds, breaking through gravity and reaching escape velocity. Everything after that is momentum. What we're doing in these 21 days is generating enough internal force to break the gravitational pull of your old identity. Once you do that, once you're in orbit, everything changes. Your relationships, your work, your confidence, your sense of who you are and what you deserve. But we have to get off the ground first. So, who is this book for? It's for the 38-year-old in Denver who has everything he was supposed to want and feels nothing. It's for the college student in Atlanta who knows she's capable of extraordinary things but can't stop self-sabotaging. It's for the mother in Phoenix who put herself last for a decade and forgot what she even likes. It's for the 62-year-old in Chicago who wonders if he waited too long. It's for anyone who wakes up, looks at their life, and feels the quiet ache of unlived potential. It's for the people who have tried before and failed, who wonder why motivation never lasts, who secretly suspect they're the problem. You are not the problem. The approach was. Here's how to use this book. Read it straight through once, then work through each day in real time. One day, one practice, one mental shift. Don't skip ahead. The sequence is not random. Each day primes your brain for the next. By day 21, you'll understand why they were arranged exactly this way. Let's begin. The architecture of change. Understanding the system. Before you try to change it, before we get to day 1, you need to understand exactly what you're up against. Not to scare you, but because you can't win a fight you don't understand. Chapter 1. The Machine Running Your Life. In 1956, cognitive scientist George Miller published a paper that quietly rewrote our understanding of the human mind. His central insight: your conscious mind can hold roughly 7 pieces of information at once. 7. Meanwhile, your brain is processing approximately 11 million bits of information every single second. The math is staggering. Your conscious mind, the you that reads these words, makes decisions, imagines the future, controls less than 1% of your brain's actual activity. Everything else runs automatically. This automatic system, what psychologists call System 1, what neuroscientists call implicit processing, is the machine that actually runs your life. It controls your emotional reactions, your habits, your default posture, your instinctive responses to stress and rejection and opportunity. It fires so fast and so silently that you experience its outputs as thoughts you had, feelings that arose, decisions you made. It feels like choice. It almost never is. Here's the critical thing to understand. This system was built from experience. Every time something happened to you, as a child, and you felt a specific emotion, a neural pathway formed. Every time that experience repeated, the pathway deepened. Over years and decades, those pathways became highways, wide, smooth, automatic routes your brain takes without even consulting your conscious mind. Did you grow up in a house where money was always tight and anxiety-inducing? Your brain built an automatic fear response around financial concepts. Now, as an adult, anytime you face a financial decision, that old highway activates before you've consciously processed anything. You feel anxious, you avoid, you self-sabotage, not because you're irrational, but because you're running a program written by a child in circumstances that no longer exist. Were you criticized constantly as a kid? Your brain built a self-protective pattern of shrinking, avoiding visibility, deflecting compliments. Now you call it being humble, but it's actually a survival strategy from a long-past battlefield. Were you rewarded for achievement but never just loved? Your brain linked worthiness to performance. Now you can't rest. You can't celebrate wins before chasing the next one. You're exhausted, but you don't know how to stop because the machine doesn't know how to stop. None of this is your fault, but it is your responsibility because the machine was built unconsciously, but it can be rebuilt consciously. That's exactly what these 21 days are designed to do. Chapter 2. Why Willpower Doesn't Work and What Does. Let's talk about willpower, specifically why every self-improvement system that relies primarily on willpower is designed to fail. Willpower is a resource. It depletes. Study after study, from Roy Baumeister's groundbreaking research at Florida State University to replications across a dozen countries, confirms this. Every time you exercise self-control, you draw from a limited pool of mental energy. And once that pool runs low, usually by early afternoon for most people, your ability to resist old patterns, make effortful decisions, and override automatic responses collapses. This is why diets fail on day 14, why exercise streaks break on Tuesday evening, why you do great in the morning and fall apart at night. You're not failing, you're depleting. The solution is not more willpower. The solution is to stop requiring willpower. The most successful transformations in human psychology don't happen by forcing new behaviors through sheer mental effort. They happen by redesigning the environment and the emotional associations that make old behaviors automatic and new behaviors easier. Here's the principle. Every behavior in your life is the path of least resistance given your current environment and emotional state. You don't eat junk food because you're weak. You eat it because it's accessible, familiar, and emotionally rewarding. You don't scroll social media for 2 hours because you're undisciplined. You scroll because it gives you microdoses of dopamine that your nervous system has learned to crave. Change the environment, change the emotional associations, change the default behavior. This is the science behind what we're building in 21 days. Not a willpower boot camp, a systematic redesign of your defaults. Chapter 3. What actually happens in 21 days? You've probably heard that habits take 21 days to form. That's a myth, or at least a massive oversimplification. The 21-day figure comes from plastic surgeon Maxwell Maltz's 1960 observation that amputees typically took about 21 days to stop feeling phantom limb sensations. He generalized it, wrote about it, and somehow it became gospel. The truth is more nuanced and actually more hopeful. Researcher Philippa Lally at University College London tracked 96 people over 12 weeks as they attempted to form new habits. On average, automatic behavior formation took 66 days. But, and this is crucial, the variability was enormous. Some behaviors became automatic in as few as 18 days. Others took 254. The complexity of the behavior, the person's baseline stress levels, the consistency of the practice, and the depth of emotional association all mattered. So, why 21 days? Because 21 days is enough time to get past the two critical failure points in any transformation attempt. Failure point 1, days 1 to 3. This is when the novelty is still high, but the first real friction arrives. The alarm goes off and it's cold. The meditation feels pointless. The journaling feels forced. Most people quit here because the emotional reward hasn't caught up yet. Failure. Point 2. Days 10 to 14. The novelty is gone. The initial rush of motivation has faded. The new behavior no longer feels new. It feels like work. This is the valley of the transformation. This is where 80% of attempts die. This is why day 12 and 13 in this book are specifically designed around getting you through the valley. If you make it to day 21, research suggests you are dramatically more likely to continue than someone who stopped at day 15. The 21-day mark isn't the finish line. It's the point where momentum becomes real. The point where the new identity starts to feel native rather than foreign. This is what we're engineering. One day at a time. The 21-day protocol. Week 1. Excavation. Days 1 to 7. The first week is about seeing clearly. You can't build something new on a foundation you don't understand. These 7 days are designed to reveal the invisible architecture of your current life. Your patterns, your stories, your defaults, your resistance. Warning: this week might be uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort means you're looking at real things. Day 1. The honest inventory. Before we do anything else, we need to know where we actually are, not where we wish we were, not where we think we should be, where we actually are. The honest inventory is a simple but often confronting exercise. You're going to map every major domain of your life: relationships, career, health, finances, creativity, spirituality, personal growth, and give each one a score from 1 to 10. But here's the rule: you can't explain or justify the scores. No, well, it's a 4, but it would be higher if I hadn't had that tough year. Just numbers, just honesty. After you score each domain, write one sentence describing what a 10 in that area would look like for you. Not what society says a 10 looks like, what you genuinely want. Most people doing this exercise discover 2 things. First, their average score is lower than they'd assumed. Second, they've been working hard in 1 or 2 areas while almost entirely neglecting others, creating the illusion of progress while actually running in place. Today's practice takes 30 minutes. Do it in 1 sitting. Don't edit yourself. Don't let the inner critic soften your scores upward or drag them downward. Aim for the kind of honesty you'd only share with your most trusted friend. At the end of day 1, put the inventory somewhere you'll see it. Stick it to your bathroom mirror. Make it the lock screen on your phone. This isn't your permanent reality. It's your starting point. And starting points, no matter how uncomfortable, are sacred. Day 2. The stories we live inside. Every person alive is living inside a story. A narrative that explains who they are, what they're capable of, what they deserve, and what's possible for someone like them. Most of us inherited our stories from other people, parents, teachers, peers, culture, before we were old enough to decide whether they were true. Today, we're going to excavate yours. Here are the 3 most common stories that quietly destroy potential. Read them and notice, with radical honesty, whether any of them live in you. Story 1. I'm not the kind of person who, as in, I'm not the kind of person who finishes things, who takes risks, who is truly loved, who deserves abundance. This story is particularly insidious because it sounds like self-knowledge. It isn't. It's a conclusion drawn from past experience that's been mistaken for a permanent personality trait. Story 2. If only I had started younger, if only I had better luck, if only my family had been different. The if only story is a way of placing the source of your life outside your control. It feels reasonable. It's a prison. Story 3. I should have. The retrospective blame loop. Every hour spent punishing yourself for past decisions is an hour not spent building a different future. The past is data. It is not a verdict. Today's practice: write down the 3 most limiting stories you tell about yourself. Then, for each one, write an alternative story. Not a lie, not blind positivity, but a legitimately possible reframe. Example: I'm not the kind of person who finishes things becomes, I've had difficulty finishing things in the past, and I now understand why, and I'm addressing those specific reasons. You don't have to believe the new story yet. You just have to acknowledge it's possible. Day 3. The Resistance Map. Stephen Pressfield calls it resistance, that invisible force that rises up whenever you move toward your best work, your truest self, your most meaningful life. It manifests as procrastination, distraction, suddenly remembering something urgent, the persistent feeling that you'll start properly tomorrow. Resistance is not random. It is proportional to the importance of what you're trying to do. The bigger the dream, the stronger the resistance. This is actually useful information. Wherever you feel the most resistance in your life is a map pointing directly toward what matters most to you. Today's practice: make a list of every area in your life where you are chronically procrastinating, avoiding, or half committing. For each item on the list, ask honestly, what would change in my life if I stopped resisting this? What am I afraid would happen if I actually pursued this fully? The fear underneath the resistance is almost always the same. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of success. Yes, that's real. And, most deeply, fear of discovering that you gave everything and it still wasn't enough. Name the fear. Write it down explicitly. Something strange happens when you do this. The fear loses density. It becomes a thought you're having rather than a reality you're trapped inside. That shift from I am afraid to I am noticing fear is one of the most powerful moves in cognitive psychology. Practice it today. Day 4. Designing your environment. On day 2 of every January, gyms across America are packed. By day 25, they're back to normal. The problem isn't motivation. The problem is environment. Your environment is making decisions for you 24 hours a day. The foods within arm's reach, the apps on your phone's home screen, the people you spend most of your time with. The objects you first see when you wake up, the notifications that interrupt your focus, all of it is shaping your behavior. Say, without your conscious consent, today we redesign it. Pick 3 specific behaviors you want to change over the next 21 days. For each one, identify the environmental trigger that enables the unwanted behavior, and redesign that trigger. Examples. If you want to stop mindless phone scrolling in the morning, charge your phone outside the bedroom. If you want to start exercising, put your gym shoes directly in front of your bedroom door. If you want to eat better, remove everything from your kitchen that you're trying to avoid and replace it with what you actually want to eat. This sounds almost embarrassingly simple. That's the point. The science on environmental design is unambiguous. Making a behavior easier increases its frequency, and making a behavior harder decreases it. You're not fighting your psychology. You're engineering around it. Spend 60 minutes today physically rearranging your environment based on the person you want to become. This is not a metaphor. Move things, rearrange things, delete things, buy things. Make your environment tell a different story about who you are. Day 5. The Morning Protocol. How you begin your day is how you train your brain to begin every experience. The first 30 minutes after waking are neurologically extraordinary. Your brain is transitioning from theta wave activity, deep, subconscious processing, to alpha and then beta waves, conscious awareness. During this transition, you are more suggestible, more emotionally open, and more capable of setting the tone for your neural state than at almost any other time. Most people immediately fill this window with the news, social media, email, or argument. They bathe their newly awakened brain in cortisol and reactivity before they've even had coffee. Then they wonder why they feel anxious and reactive all day. Starting today, you're building a morning protocol. It doesn't need to be 2 hours long. 30 minutes is enough. Here's the structure. First 5 minutes. No phone. Before anything else, before checking any screen, lie still or sit upright and take 10 slow, deep breaths. Not meditation, though that's fine if you want it. Just breathing. Just giving your nervous system a moment to arrive. Next 10 minutes. Move your body. Walk. Stretch, do push-ups. Dance in your kitchen if that's what comes naturally. The goal isn't fitness here. It's triggering the neurochemical cascade that comes with physical movement. Dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, the brain chemicals that make you feel capable and clear. Next 10 minutes. Write. Journal. Without agenda, stream of consciousness. 3 pages if you follow Julia Cameron's Morning Pages method, or even just 1 page. Write about what you're grateful for, what you're afraid of, what you're excited about, what you want to accomplish. The act of translating internal experience into language activates your prefrontal cortex, the center of planning, self-control, and meaning-making. Final 5 minutes. Set 1 intention for the day. Not a to-do list. 1 word, 1 sentence, 1 genuine aim. Today, I choose to be patient. Today, I focus on what's in my control. Today, I do the thing I've been avoiding. Write it. Say it out loud. Let it be the operating system for your day. Do this for the remaining 17 days of this protocol. Watch what happens. Day 6. The People Audit. Jim Rohn famously said you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Neuroscience backs this up with a phenomenon called emotional contagion, the automatic, unconscious synchronization of mood, energy, and even neural activity between people who regularly share space. This cuts both ways. The people who expand you, challenge you, and believe in your capacity, their energy is contagious. So is the energy of the people who drain you, who mock your ambitions, who make smallness feel comfortable. Today's practice: write down the 10 people you spend the most time with. in person, by phone, in text. For each person, write one word that describes how you consistently feel after extended time with them. Energized, drained, inspired, diminished, challenged, comfortable, seen, invisible? This isn't about cutting people off. Most of the relationships on your list are real, complex, and valuable. But awareness matters. When you know that certain interactions consistently leave you depleted, you can manage them differently. Set limits, shorten them, change the content of conversations, or stop seeking emotional sustenance from someone who isn't capable of providing it. The more important question this audit raises: are the people who make you feel most alive and most like your best self getting enough of your time? Most people discover the answer is no. Day 7. Rest as resistance. The 7th day is designed to feel counterintuitive. We're doing less, on purpose. American culture has a pathological relationship with rest. Rest is marketed as laziness unless it's been earned through sufficient suffering. Doing nothing is culturally coded as failure. Even vacations are increasingly packed with productivity, language apps, business podcasts, early morning runs to prove we still have it. But here's what neuroscience says: the brain consolidates learning during rest. The insights from days 1 to 6 need time to be processed, integrated, and encoded. Without rest, real rest, unstructured and unpressured, transformation is all input and no integration. Today's practice is radical. Give yourself 1 full hour of doing nothing useful. No screens, no productivity, no self-improvement content. Sit outside, walk without earbuds, take a bath, stare at the ceiling. Let your mind wander. Notice the discomfort this creates. That discomfort is data. It tells you how deeply the addiction to busyness runs. It shows you the nervous system's difficulty with stillness. That difficulty is exactly what we're beginning to heal. Recap of Week 1. You now have an honest map of your life, a clear view of your limiting stories and your resistance patterns, a redesigned environment, a morning protocol, and a clearer picture of your relationships. You're not the same person who opened this book 7 days ago. Week 2 begins tomorrow, and it goes deeper. Week 2, Reconstruction, days 8 to 14. Week 1 was about seeing. Week 2 is about building. You've excavated the old foundation. Now we pour concrete. These 7 days focus on installing the specific mental, emotional, and behavioral patterns that will carry you forward long after day 21. Day 8. Identity before action. Here's the most important insight in this entire book. Read it slowly. Every sustainable change in human behavior starts with a change in identity, not a change in action. Most people try to change by saying, I want to, or I need to, or I should. I want to exercise more. I need to eat better. I should be more patient. This language frames the desired behavior as external to who you are, something you're trying to force yourself to do despite your current nature. People who successfully transform don't say, I want to exercise. They say, I am someone who moves their body. They don't say, I'm trying to eat healthy. They say, I'm not really a junk food person. The behavior follows the identity, not the other way around. James Clear articulates this brilliantly in his work on habit formation. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. Want to become a writer? Write 1 sentence today. You've cast a vote. Want to become someone who doesn't quit? Do the hard thing for 5 minutes when you want to stop. Vote cast. Identity is built from evidence, and evidence is built from tiny, repeated actions. Today's practice: write a 1-paragraph description of the person you want to become, in the present tense, as if it's already true, not future tense, not aspirational, present tense identity. I am someone who, read it every morning for the rest of this protocol. Day 9, the discipline paradox. The word discipline comes from the Latin word disciplina, meaning teaching, learning, a course of study. It has nothing to do with punishment, nothing to do with suffering, nothing to do with forcing yourself through gritted teeth and white knuckles. Real discipline is the practice of choosing the future over the present. That's it. Every time you choose the action that serves your future self over the one that satisfies your present mood, you are exercising discipline. And like any exercise, it builds strength. But here's the paradox. The more you practice, the less it feels like discipline. It begins to feel like identity, and once it's identity, it's automatic. The bridge between forced and automatic is built through a specific psychological technique called implementation intentions. Instead of saying, I will exercise more, you say, when I wake up on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, I will immediately put on my running shoes and walk to the end of my block. The specificity removes the decision. There's no morning negotiation. The plan is made. The automatic system executes it. Today's practice, pick 3 behaviors you want to establish over the next 13 days. For each one, write an implementation intention. When specific trigger, I will specific behavior. Put these somewhere visible. Remove the need for morning willpower by making the decision now. Day 10. Rewiring through language. The language you use, both out loud and in the privacy of your own skull, is not describing your reality. It is creating it. Cognitive linguist George Lakoff spent decades demonstrating that the metaphors we use to structure our understanding of experience literally shape what we notice, how we respond, and what we believe is possible. When you say, I'm drowning in work, your nervous system activates differently than when you say, I have a full plate right now. Same objective situation. Completely different physiological and psychological response. Today, we're doing a language audit. You're going to track, for the next 24 hours, every time you use limiting language about yourself. The goal isn't to force toxic positivity. It's to catch the automatic, unexamined language patterns that quietly install ceilings in your mind. Common culprits. I always, I never, I can't help it. That's just how I am. I'm terrible at, I'm so stupid. I have no willpower. Each of these statements is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your brain hears them as instructions. For every limiting phrase you catch, write a replacement. Not a lie, a possibility. Not, I'm terrible at math becomes, I'm a math genius. That's fake, and your brain knows it. Instead, I'm terrible at math becomes, I haven't yet invested real time in understanding math. The shift is subtle. The difference in what it opens is enormous. Day 11. The courage muscle. Courage is not the absence of fear. If that were true, courage would be easy. You'd just wait until you weren't scared and then act. But fear doesn't work that way. The fears worth facing never fully disappear. The courage muscle is built by acting in spite of the fear, not by eliminating it. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability and courage has found something counterintuitive. The people with the highest capacity for courage are not people who experience less fear. They're people who have developed a higher tolerance for the discomfort that comes with uncertainty. Discomfort tolerance is trainable. Every time you sit with discomfort without immediately escaping it, through food, phone, distraction, avoidance, your brain registers a small but real victory. You learn, experientially, that you can survive discomfort, that it passes, that it doesn't kill you. Today's practice: do one thing that scares you. Small is fine. Send the email you've been avoiding, make the call, Speak up in the meeting. Ask the question you're afraid sounds stupid. Tell someone the truth you've been protecting them from. Take the class. Post the thing. The size of the action matters less than the act of choosing courage over comfort. Every time you do this, you're training a reflex, gradually, reliably changing the automatic response from avoid to advance. Day 12. The Valley. This is the hardest day in the protocol, not because we're asking more of you, but because of where you are in the arc. Day 12 is the Valley. The initial excitement of Day 1 is a distant memory. The novelty has completely worn off. The new practices feel effortful. The old patterns are calling loudly. The voice that says, "You've already done better than you usually do, it's fine to ease up," is getting very convincing. I want you to know this in advance, so when you feel it today, you don't mistake it for a message that the transformation isn't working. It is working. This feeling, this specific tired and tempted feeling, is what growth feels like from the inside. It's the point where the brain is actively deciding whether to deepen the new pathways or return to the old ones. Every person who has made it to Day 21 has passed through this valley. You will too. Today's practice is simple and non-negotiable. Do the minimum. Whatever the minimum version of each practice is, do that. A 5-minute morning protocol instead of 30. 1 paragraph of journaling instead of a page. 10 minutes of movement instead of 40. Don't try to do more. Don't try to compensate for yesterday or prepare for tomorrow. Just do the minimum today. Showing up at minimum capacity is infinitely better than not showing up. The habit is the point. The consistency is the point. Minimum effort, maintained, will change your life. Maximum effort, abandoned, will not. Day 13. The Power of Already. You made it through the valley. That says something real about you. Today we leverage one of the most underused psychological tools available, evidence of past capability. The human brain has a negativity bias. It weights negative memories, failures, and fears approximately twice as heavily as positive equivalents. This was useful for our ancestors. Remembering where the predators lived was more survival relevant than remembering where the best berries were. For modern humans trying to change their lives, it's a liability. Deliberately countering this bias requires deliberate practice, specifically the practice of seeking out evidence of your own past, capability, resilience, and growth. Today's practice. Write a list of every hard thing you've ever done, not just the things you're proud of, all of it. The difficult conversation you had, the year you got back up after getting knocked down, the thing you were terrified of, and did anyway, the version of yourself who survived something that felt unsurvivable. Look at this list. Sit with it. Let your nervous system register what it represents. Proof. Proof that you are capable of hard things. Proof that the person reading this book has already survived every hard day they've ever had, and showed up again the next day. That person doesn't quit. That person is exactly who this protocol is designed to unleash. Day 14. Halfway. Reckoning. You're at the halfway point. 14 days in. Take stock. Pull out the honest inventory from day 1 and score each domain again. Don't overthink it. Just react with a number. Compare the scores. For most people, 2 or 3 areas will have already shifted. Not because the external circumstances changed, because the internal relationship to them changed. This is the key insight of week 2. External reality changes after internal reality changes, not before. You don't get confident and then do the brave thing. You do the brave thing repeatedly, and confidence follows. You don't feel like someone worth investing in and then start investing in yourself. You start investing in yourself and gradually feel like someone worth it. The direction of causation in transformation is almost always from action to feeling, not feeling to action. If you've been waiting to feel ready, you've been waiting for something that won't come until you start. Write 3 things you will do differently in week 3 based on what you've learned about yourself in week 2. Be specific. This is your personal protocol, built from self-knowledge that no generic program could have given you. Week 3, Integration, days 15 to 21. The final week is about making all of this permanent. Not in a rigid, controlling way, but in the way that a river permanently alters a landscape simply by choosing to flow the same path long enough. Week 3 is about deepening the grooves you've carved until they feel less like effort and more like home. Day 15, Compounding Actions. Compound interest is the most powerful force in finance. The same principle governs personal transformation. Small actions, consistently executed, compound dramatically. A 1% improvement every day doesn't result in a 365% improvement over a year. It results in a 3,700% improvement. A daily 1% decline results in almost nothing after a year. The mathematics of consistency are extraordinary and counterintuitive. Small and steady consistently demolishes large and sporadic. Today's reflection. Look back over the first 14 days and identify the 2 or 3 practices that seemed small but left you feeling consistently better. These are your compounding actions, the ones with the highest return per unit of effort. For the remaining 7 days, prioritize these above everything else. Transformation doesn't require doing everything every day. It requires doing the right things most days. Know the difference. Ruthlessly protect the practices that actually move the needle for you. Day 16. The Forgiveness Protocol. No book about transformation is complete without addressing the single biggest weight that keeps people anchored to their past: unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is exhausting. It requires you to carry old pain into every new moment. It keeps part of your attention perpetually in the past, relitigating old injuries, imagining different outcomes, fantasizing about apologies that haven't come and may never come. Every minute spent in resentment is a minute not spent building the life you want. Here's what forgiveness is not. It is not saying that what happened was acceptable. It is not reconciliation. It is not weakness. Forgiveness is a practical decision to stop paying the ongoing cost of someone else's past behavior. It's closing a drain in your energy that has been quietly hemorrhaging life force for years. Today's practice. Write a letter you will never send. To the person or the version of yourself you most need to forgive. Write everything you haven't said, every hurt, every anger, every wish that things had been different. Let it all come out with no filter. Then write one final line. I am choosing to put this down now, not because it was okay, because I deserve to move forward. Then put the letter away, or burn it, or shred it. The point is not the outcome. The point is the articulation, the acknowledgement, and the deliberate choice to release. Many people find this the single most powerful exercise in the entire 21 days. Day 17. Building your future self. Today, we meet the person you're becoming, not in an abstract way, but in a specific, emotionally vivid, neurologically engaging way. Visualization is often dismissed as New Age fluff, but the neuroscience behind it is solid. The brain activates many of the same neural circuits when vividly imagining an experience as when actually having it. Athletes have used this for decades. Elite military units use it. Surgeons use it. The brain doesn't distinguish sharply between a powerfully imagined experience and a remembered one. Both leave traces. Today's practice. Find 20 uninterrupted minutes. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and build a vivid mental image of your life 1 year from today, assuming you have maintained the practices and identity shifts you've begun. Not a fantasy, an extrapolation. What does a normal Tuesday morning look like? What does your body feel like? How do you walk into a room? How do you handle conflict? Who are you spending time with? What kind of work are you doing? Be specific. Engage all 5 senses. Feel the feeling of being that person. Stay there for at least 10 minutes. When you open your eyes, write down 3 specific, concrete things the future version of you does daily that you are not currently doing. These become your day 18, 19, and 20 practices. Day 18. The no you never said, every yes you say is a no to something else. This is not a metaphor. Time is finite, attention is finite, energy is finite. Every commitment, obligation, habit, relationship, and activity in your life is taking up space that could be occupied by something else. One of the most overlooked elements of personal transformation is strategic subtraction, the deliberate removal of the things that are consuming your resources without generating real value. Not just minimalism for its own sake, but a ruthless prioritization based on the person you're committed to becoming. Today's practice. List everything you said yes to in the last 30 days, commitments, relationships, recurring activities, digital habits, conversations you're tolerating. For each one, ask, does this serve the person I'm building? Does this add real value to my life or someone else's? Am I doing this from genuine choice or from guilt, habit, or fear of what happens if I stop? Identify at least one thing you're going to stop doing. Not reduce, stop. Create space. Space isn't emptiness, it's opportunity. The future you want doesn't have room to arrive when every hour of your life is already occupied. Day 19. Accountability without shame. By day 19, you've established enough momentum that the greatest threat is no longer motivation. It's accountability drift. The slow, almost imperceptible loosening of standards that happens without external accountability. The research on accountability is stark. People who share their goals with a specific person and set regular check-in meetings are 65% more likely to achieve them than people who set goals alone. Add a consistent accountability structure, and that number climbs to 95%. Today's practice: identify one person, a friend, a colleague, a coach, a family member, who embodies the qualities you're cultivating, who genuinely wants you to succeed, and who will tell you the truth rather than just what you want to hear. Contact them today. Tell them what you're building. Ask them to check in with you weekly. This relationship doesn't need to be transactional or formal. It can be as simple as a text every Sunday. Here's what I did this week. Here's where I fell short. Here's what I'm doing differently next week. The act of writing that message, of being seen, changes everything. Day 20. The Failure Agreement. Tomorrow is day 21. Before we get there, we need to make an agreement about failure, because you will fail. Not might, will. After day 21, there will be a morning you don't do the protocol. There will be a week where you fall back into old patterns. There will be a version of you, probably around day 45 or 50, who looks around and realizes they've been off for longer than they'd like to admit. This is not failure. This is the actual shape of transformation, not a smooth upward line, but a sawtooth. Progress, regression, recalibration, progress. The key variable isn't whether you fall, it's how quickly you return. The single biggest predictor of long-term transformation success is what psychologists call the failure response. What you do in the 24 hours after a relapse into old behavior. People who respond with shame, self-condemnation, and catastrophizing, "I ruined everything, I knew I couldn't do this," consistently relapse deeper and recover slower. People who respond with self-compassion and immediate recommitment, "That happened. Today I restart," recover faster and sustain longer. Today's practice. Write your personal failure agreement. It is a short, simple statement that begins, "When I fall short of my intentions, and I will, I agree to respond by," and ends with your specific plan. Not a vague, "be kinder to myself." A specific three-step response. Recognize what happened, identify what triggered it, and take one concrete action toward getting back on track within 24 hours. Self-compassion is not the enemy of high standards. It is what makes high standards sustainable. Day 21. The person you are now. You made it. Take a moment with that. Seriously, how many things in your life have you committed to that lasted 21 days? How many times have you told yourself you'd change and circled back to the starting point by the end of the second week? You are not that person today. That person didn't make it here. You did. Today, we don't add anything new. Today is entirely about consolidation and forward vision. First, go back to your Day 1 honest inventory. Score every domain again. Compare the three versions, Day 1, Day 14, and Day 21. Most people see movement in at least half the categories, not because their circumstances radically changed, but because their relationship to their circumstances changed. How you experience your life is largely a function of where you're looking from. You're looking from a higher place now. Second, read the identity paragraph you wrote on Day 8. Does it still fit? Has it evolved? Rewrite it if needed. Your identity statement should feel like a slightly uncomfortable reach. Not so distant it feels false. Not so easy it requires no growth. The sweet spot is, this is who I'm actively becoming. Third, write a letter to the person you were on Day 1. Tell them what you've learned. Tell them what surprised you. Tell them what's still hard. Tell them what's different. Seal it. Open it in 6 months. This letter will be one of the most important documents you ever write, because when you open it in 6 months, you'll realize just how much further you've come from the person who wrote it. What comes next? Chapter 4, the 90-day extension day. 22 arrives whether you plan for it or not. The question is, who greets it? The practices you've built over 21 days are seeds. Some of them have already started to root. Others need more repetition before they take hold. The 90-day extension is not a new program. It's a commitment to keep showing up for what you've already planted. Research on behavior change suggests that approximately 90 days of consistent practice is where new behaviors stop requiring conscious effort and begin to feel automatic, where the new self starts to feel like the real self. If 21 days is the ignition, 90 days is achieving stable orbit. For the next 69 days, days 22 through 90, here is a simple structure. Keep the morning protocol. It takes 30 minutes, and it is the highest leverage 30 minutes of your day. Do not negotiate it away. Review your identity statement weekly. Let it evolve. The person you're becoming in month 3 should be more refined than the person you first described on Day 8. Execute the courage practice monthly. Once per month, identify the thing you're most avoiding and do it. Keep building the muscle. Use the failure agreement without exception. When you fall short, execute the protocol. Do not skip the 24-hour recovery window. This single practice is the difference between temporary change and permanent transformation. Chapter 5. The Identity Question. There is a question that will follow you through every subsequent chapter of your life, and the quality of your answer will determine almost everything. The question is, who are you being? Not what are you doing. Not what are you achieving, not what do you have. Who are you being in this moment, in this relationship, in this challenge, in this opportunity? All external transformation, career, relationships, finances, health, creativity, is downstream of identity. The person you believe yourself to be is the invisible ceiling on every domain of your life. Raise the ceiling and everything underneath it can rise. The great news is that identity is not assigned at birth. It is not permanently installed during childhood. It is not a fixed trait. It is a living, evolving story you tell about yourself, and you are its author. You always have been. The only difference now is that you know it. The person who was struggling 3 weeks ago, they were also the author of their story. But they didn't know it, so the story was being written by default, by old programming, by other people's expectations, by the accumulated weight of past choices. You are writing consciously now. Chapter 6. On Motivation and Meaning. Motivation is overrated. There, I said it. Motivation is a feeling. Like all feelings, it comes and goes. Waiting for motivation before taking action is like waiting for the ocean to be calm before you learn to swim. It defeats the purpose. The sea will never be entirely calm, and the action you need to take will rarely feel motivated at the exact moment it needs to be taken. What doesn't come and go, what is sustainable, renewable, and deepens over time rather than depleting, is meaning. When what you're doing connects to who you are and what you genuinely care about, it doesn't require motivation, it requires only showing up. And showing up is a choice. The practices in this book were not designed to make you feel motivated, they were designed to connect you more deeply with what you mean to yourself, with your values, your genuine desires, your authentic vision for your life. From that connection, action flows not as forced effort, but as natural expression. When you wake up tomorrow and don't feel like doing the morning protocol, and some mornings you won't, the question to ask is not, do I feel motivated? The question is this the kind of person I'm becoming? If the answer is yes, you know what to do, and you do it. Not for motivation, for meaning. Chapter 7. The People You'll Become. For no transformation happens in isolation. As you change, the people around you will be affected. Some will celebrate it, some will be confused, some will resist it, because your evolution implicitly challenges them to examine their own stagnation. Be patient with the people who don't immediately understand what you're doing. Change in someone we've known for years can feel threatening, even when it's positive. The husband who starts waking up at 6 a.m. suddenly feels different to the wife still sleeping. The friend who stops drinking suddenly feels judgmental to the friends who haven't stopped. The colleague who starts speaking up in meetings feels ambitious to the colleagues who've normalized staying quiet. Your job is not to convince anyone that what you're doing is right. Your job is to keep doing it and let the results speak. Real transformation is quiet at first. It announces itself in subtle ways. A different energy in the room when you walk in, a different quality of attention you bring to conversations, a different steadiness in the face of pressure. Over time, the people in your life will either grow alongside you or give you space to grow. Both outcomes are acceptable. What is not acceptable is shrinking yourself to fit inside a box that no longer represents who you are. Chapter 8. The Permission You Never Needed. Let me tell you what I've observed about the people who successfully transform their lives. It's not that they were smarter. It's not that they had better circumstances. It's not that they had more time, more money, better relationships, or fewer obstacles. What they had, the single shared characteristic, was permission. Permission they gave themselves, quietly, privately, without anyone else's validation. Permission to want what they genuinely wanted without apologizing for it. Permission to outgrow the identity other people had assigned to them. Permission to begin again, regardless of how many times they'd started before. Permission to take their own potential seriously. Not in an arrogant way, but in the way you'd take seriously any precious, finite resource that was running out. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about time: it is running out. Not in a morbid way, in a motivating way. The version of you with the most life ahead of them is today's version. Every day that passes without conscious choice is a day of passive authorship. The story writes itself by default. You don't need anyone else to believe in you before you believe in yourself. You don't need permission from your parents, your partner, your past, your failures, or your fears. You don't need to wait until the timing is perfect, until you have more information, until you feel ready. The readiness you're waiting for? It comes from doing, not waiting. You are already the person this book was written for. You proved it by finishing it. Now go prove it with how you live. Conclusion. The beginning. There's a moment in every real transformation. It's different for everyone, but you'll know it when it comes, when you realize you're no longer pretending. The new practices are no longer things you're doing. They're things you are. The new language is no longer scripted. It's how you actually think. The person in the morning protocol isn't a future aspiration. It's you right now, in this moment. That's the moment. That's what this was all for. The transformation you've begun in these 21 days isn't a 21-day story. It's the opening chapter of one that's entirely yours to write. The version of you that closes this book is not the same one who opened it. That version had questions. You have something better. You have a direction, and you have the proof. In your bones, in your morning habits, in the way you faced the valley and kept walking, that you can follow it. The next 21 days will build on these. The next 21 after that will build on those. Each iteration, each failure and return, each choice for the future self over the present comfort. All of it compounds. All of it adds up. All of it is carving a version of you that 21 days ago you could only imagine. That imagining was enough to begin. The beginning was enough to create momentum. The momentum is yours now. 21 days ago you were unrecognizable to the person you are right now. Imagine who you'll be in another 21. Go find out. Appendix. The 21-day Quick Reference Week 1. Excavation. Day 1. Honest Inventory. Day 2. Limiting Stories. Day 3. Resistance Map. Day 4. Environmental Redesign. Day 5. Morning Protocol. Day 6. People Audit. Day 7. Intentional Rest. Week 2. Reconstruction. Day 8. Identity Statement. Day 9. Discipline by Design. Day 10. Language Audit. Day 11. Courage Action. Day 12. Minimum Viable Practice. Day 13. Evidence of Capability. Day 14. Halfway Reckoning Week. 3. Integration. Day 15. Compounding Actions. Day 16. Forgiveness. Protocol. Day 17. Future Self-Visualization. Day 18. Strategic Subtraction. Day 19. Accountability Structure. Day 20. Failure Agreement. Day 21. Identity Consolidation. The Morning Protocol. Daily. 5 minutes phone-free. Breathing, 10 minutes movement, 10 minutes journaling, 5 minutes daily intention. The Failure Response Protocol. Recognize, identify the trigger. Take one concrete action within 24 hours. No shame, no spiral. Just return. Chapter 9. The Compound Identity. There is a concept in mathematics called exponential growth that most people intuitively understand but rarely apply to personal development. When something grows by even a small percentage consistently, the results after a period of time are not merely larger, they are categorically different. A single cell divides and becomes 2. 2 become 4. 4 becomes 16. By the 30th division, you have over 1 billion cells. The math has not changed. Only time has passed. Identity works the same way. Each small choice to keep the promise you made to yourself, to do the difficult thing instead of the comfortable one, to respond with patience instead of reactivity, is not just a single action. It is a data point in the story. Your brain is constructing about who you are. The brain is always asking, always updating, am I the kind of person who does this, or am I the kind of person who avoids this? Every single response to that question, whether conscious or not, changes the probability of the next response. This is why the first week of any habit change feels so exhausting. You are making new choices against the weight of thousands of old data points that say otherwise, but by the end of week 2, the scales are beginning to balance. By day 21, the new data points have enough mass to shift the default answer. The compound identity is built from compounded evidence. This is why the daily practices in this protocol are not arbitrary exercises. They are deliberate acts of identity construction. Every morning protocol completed is a vote. Every courageous action taken is a vote. Every time you choose the future self over the present comfort, you are not just doing something different. You are becoming someone different. People who understand this stop asking whether they feel like doing the practice today. That question is the wrong question. The right question is, what am I telling my brain about who I am? And once you understand that every action is a message to your nervous system, consistency becomes less about discipline and more about self-respect. You are protecting the story you are writing about yourself. Chapter 10. The Science of Starting Over. Most people think of starting over as a sign of failure. In reality, starting over is the primary mechanism of all meaningful growth. Consider the way the body actually builds muscle. It does not grow during the workout. It grows during the recovery, specifically because the workout created small tears in the muscle fiber that the body then repairs stronger than before. The breakdown is not the failure. The breakdown is the prerequisite for the upgrade. Psychological transformation works the same way. Every time you fall back into an old pattern, and you will, your brain is not confirming that change is impossible. It is giving you an opportunity to practice the most important skill in the entire transformation process, the ability to begin again without self-destruction. Research by Kristen Neff at the University of Texas has consistently shown that people who treat themselves with self-compassion after setbacks are more likely to try again, try harder, and ultimately succeed than people who respond to failure with self-criticism. This is counterintuitive to the culture many of us grew up in, a culture that equates harshness with high standards. But the data is unambiguous. Self-compassion does not lower the bar. It lowers the cost of attempting to clear it. The person who can restart without drama, who can miss a day, acknowledge it without catastrophizing, and simply recommit the next morning, has a power that the person waiting for perfect conditions will never develop. Perfect conditions do not build resilience. Imperfect conditions, navigated with grace, do. Starting over is not a setback. It is the practice. Every time you do it, every time you choose, despite the pull of the familiar, to begin again, you are doing the single most important thing a human being can do. You are refusing to let the past determine the future. That refusal, practiced consistently, is what transformation is made of. Chapter 11. Relationships as mirrors. The people we attract and maintain in our lives are not random. They are, in many ways, reflections of our own internal state, our beliefs about what we deserve, what is safe, what is normal, and what is possible. This is a profound and sometimes confronting truth because it means that as you change, your relationships will inevitably be tested. Some relationships will deepen and expand. The people who genuinely see you and want the best for you will respond to your growth with joy. They will rise alongside you, ask better questions, share their own growth, and create a dynamic of mutual expansion. These relationships are among the most precious things a human being can have. Protect and invest in them deliberately. Other relationships will become uncomfortable, not because anyone is malicious, but because systems resist change. A family system that was organized around you being the difficult one, the responsible one, the quiet one, or the entertaining one, will experience disruption when you step out of that role. Friendships built on shared dysfunction, on complaining together, on limiting each other by mutual agreement, on comfort and stagnation, will feel strained when you begin showing up differently. This is normal. This is expected. And it requires a kind of compassionate firmness, the ability to love the people in your life while also refusing to shrink back into the version of yourself that made the relationship feel easy. Real love, of friends, family, or partners, does not require you to remain small. Any relationship that demands your stagnation as the price of connection is not love. It is codependency. As you move through the next 21 days and beyond, pay attention to how your relationships respond to your changing. The ones that celebrate your growth are your people. The ones that grow uncomfortable can be approached with patience and honest conversation, and the ones that require you to abandon your growth to maintain peace deserve a serious examination of whether they are serving your life. You will not lose yourself for anyone. That is not loyalty. That is dissolution. You are building something real and important. Surround it with the people who understand that. Chapter 12. The Unexpected Gifts of Difficulty. There is a moment in most genuine transformation journeys, usually somewhere around the midpoint, when everything gets harder before it gets better. The initial enthusiasm has faded. The novelty is gone. The old patterns are calling loudly. The new practices feel mechanical rather than meaningful. This moment is often misread as a sign that the transformation is not working. In almost every case, it is actually a sign that it is working deeply. When we begin to change, the psyche does not simply accept the new and release the old. There is a negotiation. The old identity, the one that kept you safe, that you know intimately, that has been your companion for decades, does not go quietly. It fights for relevance. It generates doubt, fatigue, rationalization, and nostalgia for the familiar. It whispers that the old way was not so bad after all. The psychological term for this is homeostasis resistance, the tendency of any system, including the human personality, to resist deviation from its established equilibrium. The system is not trying to harm you. It is trying to protect you from the uncertainty of change, which it reads, incorrectly but understandably, as threat. What this means practically is that the hardest stretches of transformation are often the most important ones. The moment you want to quit most is frequently the moment you are closest to a genuine breakthrough. Not always, but often enough that treating difficulty as a signal to persist, rather than a signal to retreat, is one of the most transformative reorientations you can make. The difficulty is also a gift in a deeper sense. It is showing you where your edges are. Every point of resistance is a precise map of your growing edge, the exact boundary between who you have been and who you are becoming. The discomfort you feel is not the problem. It is the threshold. Step through it. Chapter 13. Building a life that pulls you forward. Most people motivate themselves through pain avoidance, moving away from what they do not want. The fear of poverty drives the work. The fear of loneliness drives the relationship. The fear of judgment drives the performance. This works for a while, but it is an exhausting and ultimately insufficient engine, because once the immediate pain is far enough in the rearview mirror, the motivation evaporates. The most powerful and sustainable form of motivation is not push but pull. It is not running away from something frightening, but running toward something genuinely compelling. It is having a vision of a life that matters to you so deeply and specifically that it functions as a constant gravitational field, drawing you forward even when the path is hard, even when you are tired, even when the old patterns are loudly demanding your return. Building this kind of pull requires getting honest about what you actually want, not what you think you should want, not what would impress others, not the culturally approved version of a good life. What do you actually want your days to feel like? What kind of work energizes rather than drains you? What kind of relationships nourish rather than diminish you? What experiences make you feel most alive? These questions sound simple. They are not. Most people have spent so long managing expectations, meeting obligations, and pursuing socially validated goals that they have genuinely lost touch with their own desires. The morning journaling practice you began on day 5 is specifically designed to excavate this, to give your authentic inner voice enough space and repetition to speak clearly enough to be heard above the noise of obligation and expectation. Listen to it. Take it seriously. A life built around your genuine values and desires is not a luxury. It is not selfishness. It is the foundation of sustainable contribution, because people who are living from authentic purpose have infinite more to give than people who are grinding through obligation and waiting for the weekend. Design your life around the pull. Make the vision specific enough to be visceral. Return to it daily. Let it be the true north by which all your decisions are oriented. This is not passive dreaming, it is active engineering, using your imagination as a navigation instrument rather than an entertainment device. Chapter 14. The Long Game Won. Final thought before you step fully into the life you are building. Everything meaningful takes longer than you think it will. The transformation you are initiating in these 21 days will have its most dramatic effects not in month 1, but in year 3. Not because the early work does not matter. The early work is everything because it creates the foundation, but because compound growth is almost invisible in its early stages and breathtaking in its later ones. The writer who does not feel like a writer in year 1 because the words are still clumsy and the audience is still small. The athlete who does not feel athletic in year 1 because the body is still adapting. The leader who does not feel capable in year 1 because the confidence is still being built from new evidence. These are not failures in process. They are exactly what early-stage transformation looks like from the inside. The tree does not look like a tree when it is a seed underground. The rocket does not look like it is succeeding in those first burning, shuddering seconds of liftoff. The caterpillar does not look like anything recognizable during metamorphosis. It literally dissolves into biological soup before the butterfly forms. This is not a metaphor about prettiness. It is a biological fact about what real transformation requires. It requires a period that looks like dissolution. If you are in that period right now, if you feel like you are somewhere between the person you were and the person you are becoming, with one foot in each world and fully at home in neither, you are exactly where you need to be. You are in the transformation, not before it, not after it, in it. The long game is simply the commitment to keep showing up. On the good days and the bad days, on the days when growth is obvious and the days when nothing seems to be moving, on the days when you feel like the person you are becoming and the days when you feel completely like the person you used to be. Show up on all of them, especially the last kind. That is the long game. That is the game worth playing. And you, by the fact of being here, of having read this far, of having done the work of these 21 days, have already shown that you are someone who plays it. The world needs the version of you that this book was trying to help you become, not some idealized, impossible perfection, but the truest, most courageous, most genuinely alive version of the specific, irreplaceable person you are. Go be that person, starting today, not perfectly, not without doubt or setbacks or days when you wonder if it is worth it. Just consistently, just honestly, just with the best of what you have, given on purpose, every single day. That is more than enough. That is everything. Going deeper, the psychology of identity change, a deeper look. When psychologists study identity, they are studying something far more complex than a simple self-concept. Identity is a living system, a constantly negotiated story that weaves together memory, emotion, social context, physical sensation, and belief into something that feels like a unified self. Understanding its architecture helps you work with it more skillfully. Psychologist Dan McAdams at Northwestern University has spent decades studying what he calls the narrative identity, the internalized story we construct about our own life that gives it meaning, continuity, and purpose. This story is not a passive recording of events. It is an active interpretation, constantly edited, selectively remembered, and shaped by our current emotional state and self-concept. Here is what this means for transformation. You are not simply changing behaviors. You are editing the central narrative of your life. The story you tell about who you are and how you got here is being rewritten. And like any author doing a revision, you have the power to keep the elements that serve the story and release the ones that do not. The most effective identity revisions are not wholesale rewrites. They are expansions. They take the real, true, complex person you already are and expand the narrative to include capacities and possibilities that the old story excluded. You are not pretending to be someone you are not. You are discovering dimensions of yourself that fear, habit, and old programming had convinced you did not exist. This process is both deeply personal and deeply universal. Every human being who has ever grown, ever changed, ever become someone they once couldn't imagine being, went through this exact process. The specifics of their story are different from yours. The structure of the transformation is identical. Recognize what you are doing as part of the oldest human story there is, the story of becoming. The neuroscience of new habits. What is actually happening in your brain? When you repeat a new behavior, something physically changes in your brain. This is not metaphor. It is biology. Neurons that fire together wire together. A principle first. Articulated by Canadian psychologist Donald Hebb in 1949 and confirmed repeatedly by modern neuroimaging studies. Every time you practice a new behavior, the neural circuit supporting it is slightly strengthened. The connection between neurons grows more efficient. The pathway becomes easier to travel. At the same time, neural pathways that are not used begin to weaken, a process called synaptic pruning. The brain is remarkably efficient. It invests resources in well-used pathways and systematically dismantles underused ones. This is why complete abstinence from a behavior is often more effective than moderation in the early stages of change. Every time you activate the old pathway, even slightly, you are refreshing its neural strength. The hippocampus, the brain region central to memory formation, plays a critical role in habit development. Emotional experiences encode more strongly than neutral ones. This is why practices that create genuine emotional resonance, like the forgiveness exercise on day 16 or the future self-visualization on day 17, leave deeper neural traces than purely intellectual exercises. The brain does not simply record information, it weights it by emotional intensity. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of planning, self-regulation, and complex decision-making, is also being actively exercised by this protocol. Every time you make a deliberate choice instead of an automatic reaction, every time you pause and respond instead of simply react, you are strengthening the prefrontal cortex's ability to govern behavior. This strengthening, practiced consistently, shifts the default mode of your operating system from reactive to intentional. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, is being recalibrated too. By repeatedly approaching feared situations, Day 11's courage practice, by sitting with discomfort instead of fleeing it, Day 7's intentional rest, and by processing old emotional wounds, Day 16, you are gradually teaching the amygdala that many of the threats it has been loudly announcing are not actually dangerous. This recalibration is not fast, but it is real, and it is measurable. What this all adds up to is this. The 21-day protocol is not simply a collection of motivational exercises, it is a structured, science-grounded program of neurological renovation. You are literally changing the physical architecture of your brain. The person who finishes day 21 has a brain that has been measurably altered by the experience, not in ways visible to the naked eye, but in ways that will determine behavior, emotion, and possibility for years to come. Common obstacles and how to navigate them. Every person who undertakes a genuine transformation journey encounters predictable obstacles. Knowing them in advance dramatically increases your ability to navigate them without being derailed. Obstacle 1. The motivation crash. Usually hits around days 4 to 6 and again around days 11 to 13. The initial excitement has faded. The novelty is gone. The practices feel mechanical. You wonder if you are doing them wrong because they no longer feel inspiring. This is normal. This is expected. Motivation is an unreliable emotional state. Practice is a commitment independent of how you feel. Do the practice anyway. The motivation will return, usually stronger than before, once you push through the mechanical phase. Obstacle 2. The comparison trap. Social media makes this worse than it has ever been. You see other people's transformations, their before and after photos, their triumphant posts about waking up at 5 a.m., and you compare their apparent results to your internal experience of still struggling. Two things are true simultaneously. Their journeys are real, and you are only seeing the curated highlight reel. More importantly, your transformation is not a competition. It has no comparative dimension. The only relevant question is whether you are more aligned today than you were yesterday. Obstacle 3. The perfectionism loop. You miss one morning of the protocol. Instead of simply recommitting the next day, you spend 3 days in a spiral of self-criticism and compensatory overachievement, followed by collapse, followed by more self-criticism. This loop is more destructive than missing the practice was. The antidote is the failure agreement from day 20, a pre-decided, compassionate, specific protocol for restarting. Use it, every single time without exception. Obstacle 4. External skepticism. Someone in your life, possibly someone you love, responds to your changes with skepticism, mockery, or concern. They may question your new habits, tease you about your morning routine, or suggest you are going through a phase. This is almost always a reflection of their own discomfort with change rather than genuine insight about yours. You do not owe anyone your transformation as entertainment. You do not need to defend it, explain it, or justify it. Simply continue. Results are the only argument that matters. Obstacle 5. The plateau. Around day 18 to 25, many people experience a period where nothing seems to be changing. The practices feel routine. No dramatic insights are arriving. The scorecard from day 1 does not look dramatically different. This plateau is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the new behaviors are being integrated deeply enough to no longer feel novel. The groundwork is being laid for the next significant leap. Stay with the practices. Trust the process. The plateau always breaks. Advanced practices for days 22 to 90. For those who want to deepen the work beyond day 21, here are specific advanced practices organized by the 3 core pillars of this transformation: mental reprogramming, disciplined action, and powerful habit construction. Advanced mental reprogramming. Begin a daily practice of cognitive diffusion, a technique from acceptance and commitment therapy in which you learn to observe your thoughts as mental events rather than facts about reality. When a limiting thought arises, "I am not capable of this," instead of engaging with it or fighting it, simply label it. "I am noticing the thought that I am not capable of this." This simple linguistic shift creates psychological distance between you and your thoughts, reducing their power to drive behavior without your conscious consent. Advanced disciplined action. Implement a weekly review practice every Sunday evening. Take 20 minutes to review the week honestly. What went well? What did not? What you learned about yourself? And what one specific adjustment you will make next week. The weekly review is how you convert experience into wisdom rather than simply accumulating more experience. Without it, you repeat the same patterns indefinitely while working very hard and wondering why nothing is changing. Advanced habit architecture. Once your core habits feel stable, usually around day 30 to 45, begin stacking new behaviors onto existing ones using a technique called habit stacking, popularized by researcher B.J. Fogg at Stanford. The formula: after I do established habit, I will new behavior. For example, after I complete my morning journaling, I will spend 5 minutes reviewing my quarterly goals. After I exercise, I will drink a full glass of water and take my vitamins. Habit stacking leverages the neural momentum of existing behaviors to install new ones with minimal willpower expenditure. Advanced environmental design. Conduct a quarterly environment audit. Every 90 days, reassess your physical, digital, and social environments against the person you are currently becoming. The environment that supported the early stages of transformation may not be the right environment for the more advanced stages. Update it deliberately, regularly, and without sentimentality. Your environment is not a static backdrop. It is an active participant in who you are becoming. Treat it accordingly. A letter to your future self. Somewhere between who you are right now and who you will be in a year, there is a version of you that has kept the morning protocol more days than not. That has done the courageous thing even when afraid. That has returned again and again from the inevitable departures. That has built something real and durable and recognizably theirs. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is not an idealized projection. It is the natural result of the choices being made right now. The exact choices described in this book, practiced imperfectly but consistently, compounded over weeks and months. That person will have a different relationship with fear than you currently do, not because fear will be absent, but because they will have built enough evidence that they can move through it. They will have a different relationship with failure, not because they will fail less, but because they will have learned to fail forward rather than backward. They will have a different relationship with themselves, more honest, more patient, more genuinely fond of the specific, irreplaceable human being they are. Write to that person, not from the anxious, aspiring place you may be standing in right now, but from the settled place of someone who trusts the process, who has done the work of these 21 days, and who knows, at a cellular level, that the direction is right. Tell that future self what you hope for them, what you are building for them, what you are laying down, the habits, the patterns, the daily choices, so that when they arrive, they find not an empty lot, but a foundation already poured. Then live up to the letter. Make yourself a good ancestor to your future self. Every day, make choices that the person you will be in 1 year will look back on with gratitude rather than regret. That is the entire project. That is what these 21 days are about. That is what every chapter, every exercise, every practice was pointing toward. Not a perfect life, not an easy one, not a life without struggle or loss or ordinary Tuesday afternoons where nothing seems to matter. A lived life, a chosen life, a life whose author you are, consciously, consistently, and without apology. That life is not in the future. It starts right now, in this moment, in the next choice you make. Make it a good one. Recommended resources for the continuing journey. The practices in this book draw from a rich tradition of research and writing. The following resources will deepen your understanding of the principles explored in these 21 days and provide continued support for the transformation you have begun. On the neuroscience of change, Andrew Huberman's research and public science communication on neuroplasticity offers some of the most accessible and rigorous modern explanations of how the brain changes. His work on morning protocols, cold exposure, and the role of dopamine in motivation is particularly relevant to the practices in this book. Following his publicly available lectures and interviews will give you a solid scientific foundation for understanding exactly what is happening in your brain during transformation. On identity and habit formation, James Clear's work on atomic habits has become a modern classic in behavioral change. His framework for identity-based habit formation, the idea that behavior change should start with identity change rather than outcome change, is central to the philosophy of this book. His concept of casting votes for the identity you want through small, consistent actions is one of the most practically useful frames for understanding how real change happens. On the psychology of self-compassion, Kristin Neff's research and writing on self-compassion offers a rigorous and scientifically grounded counterargument to the cultural mythology of harsh self-criticism as motivation. Her three-component model of self-compassion, self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness provides a practical framework for navigating setbacks without the self-destructive spiral that typically follows them. On acceptance and commitment therapy, Stephen Hayes, the developer of ACT, has written extensively for both clinicians and general audiences on the role of psychological flexibility in well-being and performance. His concept of cognitive diffusion, learning to observe thoughts rather than fusing with them, is one of the most powerful psychological tools available for breaking the tyranny of limiting self-stories. On narrative identity, Dan McAdams's research on the personal myth and narrative identity offers a profound framework for understanding how the stories we tell about ourselves shape our lives. His work makes explicit what many people sense intuitively, that we are the authors of our own lives, and provides practical insights into how intentional narrative revision can fundamentally change the trajectory of a life. The 21-Day Tracking Journal. The following journal framework can be used alongside this protocol to track your daily progress, capture insights, and maintain the accountability structure discussed on Day 19. Consistency of tracking has been shown in multiple studies to approximately double the likelihood of behavior change success compared to untracked attempts. Each day, record the following. First, your morning intention, the single word, phrase, or commitment you set during the fifth segment of your morning protocol. Second, your completion, status for each of the 4 morning protocol elements: breathing, movement, journaling, intention setting. Third, the day's specific practice and any observations it generated. Fourth, a brief end-of-day reflection. One thing that went well, one thing you would do differently, and one sentence about how you are feeling in relation to the person you are becoming. The tracking journal does not need to be elaborate. A simple notebook, a note-taking app, or even a paper calendar with check marks will serve the function. The point is not the medium. It is the act of consistent self-observation. The person who watches themselves carefully and honestly becomes someone who can navigate their own psychology with increasing skill. And navigating your own psychology with skill is the foundational capability underlying every other capacity you are building. Do not use the journal as a performance stage, a place to record only your triumphs and omit your struggles. The most valuable entries are often the most honest ones. The day you did not want to get up, the moment you noticed a limiting thought and caught yourself, the conversation where you chose courage over comfort, the evening you fell short, and what you did next. These entries are not confessions of failure. They are field notes from the ongoing expedition of becoming yourself. A final note on patience. We live in an age of extraordinary impatience. Information is immediate. Gratification is often immediate. The entire architecture of the digital world is designed to compress time, to give you what you want, now, with minimal friction. This conditioning has seeped into how we relate to personal development, and it is one of the most persistent obstacles to genuine transformation. Real change is not instant. It is not even fast. It is a slow, cumulative, often invisible process that occasionally produces dramatic visible leaps. Leaps that look like overnight success to anyone watching from the outside, but that are actually the accumulated result of months of unglamorous, persistent daily work. The work you are doing, this 21-day ignition, these morning protocols, these daily practices, will produce results that will not always be immediately visible. Some of the most important changes happening right now are entirely internal. The rewiring of a neural pathway, the loosening of a limiting belief, the gradual expansion of your capacity to tolerate uncertainty without fleeing from it. These changes are invisible. They do not produce a before and after photo. They do not generate applause. They generate a life, slowly, quietly, from the inside out. A life in which the problems that used to feel overwhelming gradually feel manageable. A life in which the fear that used to stop you becomes something you move through. A life in which the person in the mirror becomes, over months and years, genuinely unrecognizable from the person who opened this book on day 1. That is worth the patience. That is worth the daily practice when it feels pointless. That is worth the returning again and again from the inevitable departures from your best intentions. Be patient with yourself in the way you would be patient with anyone you deeply love who is attempting something genuinely difficult, because you are. And because the outcome of that attempt, the person you will become if you simply refuse to stop, is one of the most important things that will ever happen. Not just for you, for everyone your changed self will touch. Transformation is never private. The person you become does not stay contained inside your own life. They show up differently in every relationship, every room, every conversation. They model something for the people watching. That change is possible, that people can grow, that the stories we inherit are not the stories we are required to keep. Your transformation is an act of service, perhaps the most important one available to you. Begin. Begin again. Never stop beginning. That is the whole instruction. Making it yours. Personalizing the protocol. One of the most common mistakes people make when working with a structured transformation protocol is treating it as a rigid prescription rather than an intelligent framework. The 21 days described in this book are designed with a specific sequence and logic, and that logic is real. But within it, there is significant room for personalization, and that personalization matters. The morning protocol, for example, specifies a 30-minute structure. But the underlying goal is not 30 minutes. It is the intentional transition from unconscious reactivity to conscious agency at the beginning of the day. If 20 minutes achieves that for you on a given morning, that is sufficient. If 45 minutes feels like the right amount on a day when you have the space and the inspiration, take it. The structure is the scaffolding. Your authentic engagement with the practices is the building. Similarly, the specific writing exercises, the honest inventory, the limiting stories, the resistance map, are prompts, not formulas. If a different question or a different framing unlocks more genuine insight for you, use it. The goal of each exercise is a specific type of self-awareness, clarity about where you are, what patterns are running, and what direction you want to move. Any practice that reliably generates that clarity is the right practice for you. The courage practice on day 11 is perhaps the most personal of all the exercises. What constitutes a meaningful act of courage is entirely individual. For someone with severe social anxiety, making one phone call might be a genuinely significant act of courage. For someone who makes phone calls easily but avoids creative expression, posting a piece of writing publicly might be the equivalent. The size of the action matters far less than its relationship to your specific growing edge. As you move into the 90-day extension and beyond, you will develop an increasingly sophisticated understanding of your own psychology, your specific triggers, your most reliable high-leverage practices, the particular forms of resistance that characterize your brand of self-sabotage, and the specific conditions under which you thrive. Use that self-knowledge. Let the protocol evolve with you. What you need in year 2 of this journey will not be identical to what you needed in day 1. Honor that. The ultimate goal of any transformation system is to make itself obsolete, to install the practices and the self-knowledge deeply enough that the person no longer needs the external structure. They have internalized the compass. They navigate by their own values, their own vision, their own practiced capacity to return from deviation and continue forward. That is mastery. It is built slowly, from the ground up, starting exactly where you are right now. You have everything you need. You have always had everything you need. What this book gave you was not new material. It was a mirror, a structure, and an invitation to take seriously what you have always sensed was possible. The invitation stands. Step through the door.